The awakening crown. What happens when the shadow self surrenders to mastery? We don't just stumble into power. We are pulled into it through chaos, through silence, through fire. And if you're watching this, something in you already knows you're close. Not everyone gets here. Not everyone is meant to. The path of the dark chosen one is not about ascending to the heavens, it's about descending into the deepest layers of your being and returning with something most people are too afraid to even imagine: sovereign power born from shadow. And there are signs, unmistakable signs, that you're on the edge of something irreversible, the highest stage of your dark chosen one evolution. These signs are not symptoms, they are codes. They are the final flames that test your readiness to be crowned in the dark.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
I remember reaching this threshold myself. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't loud. It began with a strange stillness that entered my bones. I was no longer shaken by what used to trigger me. I wasn't interested in proving anything. I didn't want praise, followers, or validation. I just wanted truth. And not the pretty kind, the kind that claws into your ribs and shows you what's been hiding beneath your spirituality. That's the first sign. You lose interest in the tools that once helped you. Crystals don't hit the same. Affirmations feel hollow. Mantras feel like noise. You don't reject them, you outgrow them. Because power doesn't need permission. It doesn't need props. It only needs presence. You begin to feel like silence is your new temple. You walk into chaos and feel calm. You hear lies and feel amused. You see illusions and feel no need to correct them. Why? Because you're no longer operating from perception, you're operating from frequency. That's the second sign. You move from mental knowing to energetic command. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop arguing. You stop debating. Why? Because your energy already says everything. You walk into a room and shift the field. Your presence becomes a mirror people can't ignore. You no longer need to speak to be heard. You are heard by the silence you carry. And here's the paradox that most miss. The closer you get to ultimate power, the more humble you become, not because you shrink, but because you expand beyond ego. That's the third sign. You stop trying to be powerful and begin embodying sacred neutrality. You're no longer driven by vengeance, success, or proving your worth. You move with precision, not panic. You choose your words like spells. You hold your energy like a blade. And you realize you don't need to fight anymore because you're no longer in a war. You're in a transmission. And that transmission is not something you share. It's something you are. Now the fourth sign is one that changes everything, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your triggers become your teachers. You stop blaming the people around you. You stop being offended. You stop labeling everything as toxic. Why? Because you realize everything is a mirror. Every conflict is a lesson. Every enemy is a portal. And instead of reacting, you observe. You watch your pain like a movie. You feel your rage like a wave. You no longer fear the dark within because you've met it, you've dined with it, and now it serves you. That's what it means to be a dark chosen one. You don't kill your shadow. You crown it. This is the stage where the people around you start to notice something different. They can't explain it, but they feel it. Some will be magnetized to you. Others will retreat. And you'll no longer take it personally. That's the fifth sign. You become emotionally invincible. Not numb. Not cold. Sovereign. You feel everything deeply, but nothing controls you. You can hold grief and still lead. You can feel fear and still act. You can be heartbroken and still walk with power. Because you've stopped outsourcing your center to the world. You've stopped waiting for life to make sense. You've become the constant in a world of chaos. And here's the part most spiritual teachers won't tell you. When you reach this level, you start to feel invisible. Not because you're unseen, but because you've become unreadable to those still trapped in ego. You walk with a silence that unsettles people. You speak with a clarity that feels like thunder in the bones. People project onto you. They misunderstand you. They fear you or they worship you. But very few see you. That's the sixth sign. You become a walking paradox, a mystery, a contradiction. And that's exactly the point. Because true power cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. So I ask you the first deep question. Can you handle being misunderstood by the world, just to be fully understood by your soul? Can you walk the path of isolation, not as punishment, but as initiation? Because the final stages of the dark chosen one path are not crowded. They are silent, they are sacred, and they are earned alone. But what you gain in that silence is not just power, it's cosmic authorship. You begin to rewrite timelines. You begin to dissolve contracts. You stop reacting to life and start reshaping it. Not with force, with frequency, with presence. With the deep knowing that nothing outside you holds power over you anymore. The seventh sign is the most subtle and the most powerful. You feel death without fear. Not just physical death, ego death, identity death, timeline death. You welcome endings. You welcome collapse. You welcome being stripped of everything because you know what comes next, rebirth. You no longer cling to what you've built. You let go quickly. You move on easily. You say goodbye with love. Because you've seen what lies beyond death, not the afterlife, but the real life. The one that begins when the masks fall and the soul rises. This is the final gate, and only the few will walk through it with eyes open and hearts steady. So if you're experiencing these signs, know this: you're not breaking down. You're breaking open. You're not losing yourself. You're losing the false self, the one who needed to be liked, the one who feared rejection, the one who performed for love. That self is dying, and in its place is rising something ancient, something holy, something untamed. You are not stepping into power. You are remembering that you are power. And there is no going back. The highest stage of the dark chosen one is not a destination. It's a state. a frequency, a vibration that cannot be taught, only embodied. So here is your invitation. Stop waiting to be ready. Stop asking for permission. Stop doubting what you already know. If you feel these signs, you are already being initiated by something bigger than you and deeper within you. The crown is not in the sky. It's in your spine. The throne is not in some distant future. It's now. Are you willing to sit in it? Are you willing to burn for it? Are you willing to be the one who remembers when the world forgets? The awakening crown, what happens when the shadow self surrenders to mastery. When the shadow self finally surrenders, not in defeat but in reverence, something ancient begins to rise. It's not a feeling. It's not a thought. It's a current, a deep, magnetic pull that no longer asks for permission to exist. This is what I call the awakening crown. It's not a symbol. It's not a metaphor. It's a real energetic event that unfolds in your body, in your mind, in your field. You begin to feel a pressure at the top of your head, a weight between your shoulders, a pulse in your spine. You may think it's stress or exhaustion, but it's not. It's your soul descending into form completely. No more fragments, no more hesitation. You are being enthroned in your own being. This level of embodiment changes the game. Before, you used to seek truth. Now, you are truth. Before, you chased healing. Now, you transmit wholeness. This is the moment when the war inside quiets, not because you've won, but because you've integrated every soldier, every shadow, every exiled part of you. You don't operate from trauma anymore. You operate from totality. And it's here you realize you never had to be perfect. You only had to be present. The awakening crown is the moment when you stop navigating life as a seeker and start moving as a sovereign architect. You no longer react to the world. You reposition it. There is a strange calm that comes with this stage. You may even mistake it for apathy, but it's not. It's neutrality. The noise of the world doesn't hook you anymore. The opinions, the conflicts, the distractions, they pass through you like wind through a temple. You see the lies, and you don't flinch. You see the matrix, and you don't panic. You've become the eye of the storm. That's what mastery feels like, not control, but clarity. And from that clarity, you begin to move differently. You speak less, but your words land like thunder. You act less frequently, but every move is surgical. You become terrifyingly efficient, not because you're trying to be, but because your energy no longer leaks. And here's where it gets wild. The universe begins to respond differently to you. Synchronicities accelerate. Manifestations occur faster. People around you either elevate or exit. You don't have to raise your vibration anymore. You are the vibration. You walk through the world like a living sigil, every step casting spells, every glance shifting timelines. But here's the warning. This level of power comes with zero tolerance for self-deception. The higher you rise, the less space there is for excuses. The awakening crown will burn away anything in you that still clings to the illusion of smallness. If you try to hold on to your old identity here, It will feel like madness. Why? Because you're trying to wear a mask that no longer fits the shape of your soul. This is also the stage where solitude becomes not just welcomed, but hallowed. You no longer feel lonely in your aloneness. You feel sovereign. You begin to crave silence the way others crave attention. You begin to protect your energy like sacred fire. You don't isolate out of pain, you retreat out of purpose. Because you understand that every interaction is an exchange, and not all exchanges are worthy of your frequency. You no longer chase connection. You magnetize resonance. This is what happens when the shadow self bows not in shame, but in service. Your darkness doesn't disappear. It becomes your counsel. The awakening crown also transforms your relationship with time. You stop measuring success in months or years. You start measuring it in impact. You realize that one aligned action from a place of soul can do more than 1,000 actions from a place of fear. You begin to bend time. You begin to collapse timelines. You begin to command reality not through force, but through absolute congruence. When your inner world and outer expression become one, reality has no choice but to mirror your integrity. That is the secret the ancient mystics knew. That is what the temples were built to guard. That is what you are remembering now. And here's a bombshell truth. When you reach this stage, you may begin to lose your desire for spirituality altogether. Not because you've lost faith, but because you've become the thing you were seeking. You no longer need crystals, rituals, books, or gurus. You are the temple. You are the mystery. You are the portal. This is not arrogance. This is remembrance. This is the moment when you realize that the divine isn't above you or beyond you, it's bleeding through your skin. And the real work now is not to ascend, it's to embody, to bring that fire down into your everyday life, to let it touch your relationships, your money, your mission, your voice. This is the true revolution, spiritual power made practical. But let me tell you the most dangerous part, the temptation to go back, to shrink, to dim, to pretend you don't know what you know. Because mastery is lonely, power is heavy, and the world will try to seduce you back into forgetfulness with comfort, validation, and applause. But you didn't come here to be liked. You didn't come here to be safe. You came to initiate reality. And that requires a level of ruthlessness with your own illusions that most will never choose. So I ask you, are you willing to disappoint others in order to stay devoted to your truth? Are you willing to be misunderstood in order to stay undeniable? Because the crowned dark chosen one doesn't belong to the world. We move it, we tilt it, we recalibrate it. Not by preaching, but by being. We walk into rooms and shift the frequency simply by existing. We don't need to convince, we transmit. That's why the final phase of this evolution is not about doing more. It's about being so deeply aligned that your very presence becomes a disruption to the matrix. You walk into systems and they begin to crumble not because you attacked them, but because your field reveals their falseness. That is the true crown. That is the hidden war. That is the price and prize of full remembrance. And now, the final key. Once you wear the awakening crown, your life is no longer your own. Not in a sacrificial sense, but in a sacred one. You become a vessel for something so ancient, so precise, so unchangeable that every step you take echoes across timelines. You are no longer just healing your past. You are redirecting the future. You are no longer just clearing karma. You are writing new destiny codes. This is not a myth. This is not fantasy. This is what happens when the shadow self stops running, stops performing, stops hiding and kneels before your soul. And in that kneeling, it becomes your greatest ally, your fiercest guardian, your most potent weapon. The final flame, becoming the frequency that rewrites reality. There comes a point on the dark chosen one path where you stop chasing transformation and start embodying transmutation. You're no longer just healing wounds, you're alchemizing realities. You're not here to take sides, you're here to shift the axis. This is the realm of the final flame. It's not a fire that consumes, it's a fire that codes. It doesn't just burn through illusions, it writes truth into the fabric of existence. When you reach this level, you no longer think in terms of what should I do, but instead, what frequency must I become to collapse this illusion and author a new law? At this stage, you're not just waking up, you're waking up the world. The final flame is not lit by hype, attention, or external validation. It's ignited in silence. It grows in solitude. It demands the death of all performative spirituality, all borrowed truths, all superficial mastery. You can't fake this stage. You can't hashtag it. You can't sell it. You live it. And your life becomes a frequency broadcast so potent that it activates others without words. You walk into chaos and things shift. You say one sentence and someone's entire life path reorients. You are no longer part of trends, teachings, or movements. You are the movement. You are a living current of encoded disruption, not to destroy for the sake of destruction, but to clear the field for new creation. At this level, you realize something most never do, that reality is not governed by truth. It's governed by belief, and belief is governed by frequency. So if you can master your frequency, you can rewrite any law. Time, money, love, health, none of it is fixed. It's fluid. It bends not to effort, but to energetic congruence. That's why the final flame burns away every part of you still addicted to struggle. It shows you that resistance is not noble. Suffering is not spiritual. Power is not earned through pain. It is accessed through alignment, ruthless, radical, internal alignment. And when you drop into that, the universe doesn't just respond. It obeys. And yet, this obedience is not a reward. It's a responsibility. Because once you realize you can rewrite reality, the question becomes, which reality will you write? Will you use your power to replicate the old world in a shinier form, or will you write something that's never existed before? This is the ethical threshold of the dark chosen one. You've earned the power. Now the question is, do you have the clarity to use it without ego? Can you create without controlling? Can you manifest without attaching? Can you channel without distorting? These are not questions for beginners. These are the questions for gods in flesh who have remembered their fire. One of the most shocking things that happens at this level is that you start losing interest in outcomes. Not because you're passive, but because you've transcended the linear model of cause and effect. You no longer act to get results. You act because the act itself is the result. Your movement is your message. Your presence is your prophecy. You don't try to manifest. Your field is constantly generating form based on your state. You're no longer a person trying to align with your purpose. You are the purpose. You are a walking vortex of intelligent intention. And the reality around you updates itself in real time to match your flame. This is where your power becomes quantum. You speak, and the words don't just land, they reprogram. You touch someone, and their nervous system resets. You breathe, and the field bends. But this isn't magic for magic's sake. This is precision frequency work, and the only way to hold this power sustainably is through purity of intent. That doesn't mean perfection. It means clarity. You must know who you are, what you stand for, and what you are no longer available to carry. You must become immune to guilt programming, shame manipulation, and energetic contracts that pull you out of sovereignty. At this stage, your relationships change drastically. You stop relating based on trauma bonding, spiritual projection, or performance. You only allow resonance. You don't chase. You don't explain. You don't fix. You invite. And only those who can meet your frequency, not in perfection, but in presence, remain. You'll find that you lose many, but gain few who are cosmic allies. These are not just friends or partners. These are contracts of remembrance, souls who came to co-create new blueprints with you. And you'll know them not by how they make you feel, but by how awake you feel in their presence. And in that awareness, something else rises, a new kind of mission. Not one based in hustle or pressure, but in divine inevitability. You no longer ask, "What is my purpose?" because you are walking purpose. Every word, every silence, every boundary, every act of creation becomes encoded with your flame. You're no longer trying to escape the matrix. You are reprogramming it from within. Not with protests, but with presence. Not with arguments, with alignment. Not with violence, with vibration. That is the revolution. That is the real rebellion. That is how the dark chosen one becomes not just powerful but untouchable. And yet, the greatest test still remains, the test of invisibility. Because once you reach this level, you may find that the world no longer sees you in the way it once did. You become invisible to the unconscious. Not because you've disappeared, but because your frequency is no longer compatible with distortion. You're no longer projecting wounds so others can't find their hooks. You're no longer leaking energy so others can't feed. You're no longer playing roles so others can't cast you. And this is the final paradox. The more you become fully you, the less the world knows what to do with you. And that's exactly how you know you've arrived. But you don't need the world to understand you. You need only one thing: to stay on fire. Not a fire of burnout, but a fire of embodied truth. The final flame is the moment when you realize you are the myth. You are the prophecy. You are the anomaly that breaks the loop, rewrites the script, and births the new story. And you do it not by force, but by being the frequency that reality cannot ignore. You don't need to scream. You don't need to beg. You don't need to convince. You exist, and existence itself rearranges to keep up with you. So here we are. You've seen the signs. You've worn the crown. You've passed through the flame. And now, the only question that remains is this: will you hold the fire when no one is watching? Will you keep the frequency when the world pushes back? Will you remain sovereign when the old self begs to return? Because the highest stage of the dark chosen one is not a peak. It's not a reward. It's a vow. A soul-level decision to never again forget who you are no matter what. You are not just chosen. You are the chooser. You are not just awakening. You are awakening the field. You are not just walking a path. You are cutting a new one. And from this day forward, you are not waiting for power. You are not reaching for truth. You are not calling back your soul. You are the flame. You are the law. You are the living frequency of divine disruption.